Welcome to Reset Talks, where I dive deep into inspiring stories of transformation, resilience, and personal growth with women over 35 who've been coached through my reset method. So, for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Coach Brittany. And for the past 2 decades, I have helped other women through their health and fitness journeys as they unlock PRs in the gym, build a better relationship with food, and teach them to ditch the mindsets that are holding them back from maintaining the results they work so hard for and ultimately want to keep. Today, I am thrilled to have the incredible Dionne joining us. Dionne is not just a client, she's a powerhouse who has embraced the reset method with determination, resilience, and a mindset focused on progress. She's lost an impressive 70 pounds and counting, but more importantly, she's gained strength, confidence, and a deeper understanding of her worth beyond the numbers on the scale. Dionne's journey is a true testament to the power of mindset, consistency, and embracing non-scale victories. I'm honored to have her here today to share her insights, motivation, and the lessons that she's learned along the way. Dionne embarked on her reset journey 1 year ago, and her internal transformation has been remarkable and inspiring. So welcome to Reset Talks, Dionne.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. So we're just going to dive right into some questions that I have for you. So the first thing I would love is if you can just share a little bit about your journey with the reset method and what initially inspired you to start this transformation.
Yeah, I have always struggled with weight loss and with my weight. I've yo-yoed up and down. And so to myself to like a specific point, and I had then spiked back up, right? And so I was just at this point where I was like, I need help. I need someone to teach me, but I didn't know who it was. And then I got your name. It was recommended by someone who had had great success. And so I had followed you for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, you know what? I need to just make the phone call and have this meeting to see, because what I loved about it was that you could relate. The hardest part is finding a trainer who's like, yeah, like I have this, like I can help you with this, emotional eating and all this, but they never, how can you relate? And so
Totally.
that was my biggest thing and my biggest draw.
Yeah.
And when we chatted, it was just like a light bulb went off, and it was like, okay, like I'm worth it. I need to believe in myself and commit to it.
Awesome. I love all of that so much. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people like will follow someone for a while. Like sometimes people will be like, I've been following you for 3 years and now I'm like ready. I'm like, oh my God, like what was it about today? But I think you just nailed it on the head. And so whenever I look at someone who's making a change in their life and is like finally like, okay, enough is enough. I'm doing this. It's because they believe. It has to start with belief. It has to start with the belief that you can do it, because I think a lot of people, will go for like the low investment, low commitment kind of options. Cause it's like, well, if I don't follow it, like I probably won't because I haven't followed anything else. I'm only out $200 versus where I'm like $10,000, please. And people are like, yeah, I better really, really want to do this. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you can disagree with me on this, but I personally believe there's an energetic shift that happens when you do have to invest like money, because it's very easy to like let yourself out. It's like, I'm not gonna go to the gym today. It's like, I'm only paying $200 for this. Like, who cares? Or, if you truly feel like your coach doesn't care, it's just so easy to like start excusing yourself, right?
Yeah.
But you said you believed in it and you decided to commit to it. And those are like two powerful words that do make or break someone, right?
Yeah. And I would say, like, even in the beginning of my journey and
Mhm.
like with like paying like all the money, like
Yeah.
it's in the beginning, you have to want to find that commitment,
Yes.
because I noticed like a huge shift that it was like, yeah, like I never knew about the money then.
Yes.
And I already knew I was going. So just not part of the commitment, like it was already I guess, ingrained, like it was just a part of
Yes.
me.
Yes. And I think it's just like ripping off that band-aid and just being like, okay, I'm going to do this, right? And I'm going to commit to it and I'm going to do it, because then once you get into it, you're like, I can't not continue. I can't not keep going, right? Yeah, I love that. So you've obviously achieved some remarkable success with weight loss. But more importantly, I think you've also focused on getting stronger. Like every week, you're like, I am going to set this like strength goal, or I did like this today. And also overcoming emotional eating triggers that you already kind of touched on. So how has taking a holistic approach, like how has that been different from what you did? Because I know in the past, like you said, you brought yourself to a certain point, but then you'd always pedal backwards. So how has having a holistic approach impacted your overall well-being, your ability to break way past that plateau you used to be able to get yourself to? And just how has that impacted you overall?
I think it's how it's organic to me is diet culture as a whole was like so ingrained in my brain. And so everything was always about restriction, restriction, and
Yeah.
you can have one cheat meal a week.
Yes. And
But
it's like
then,
you're cheating, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that was always the struggle because then once I was like cheating, it
Hmm.
was like let it open the floodgates because I couldn't have
Yeah.
all of the other things at the same
Yes.
time. And
Yes.
so I would say even though I read books about uh like moderation and that kind of stuff, it still never really hit on the head.
Yeah.
And so I didn't relate to it. But then within your program, literally it was like, here's your calories, here's your protein macro, go for it.
Eat whatever
And
you want.
you
Yeah.
get to learn one, you get to eat whatever you want, your
Yes.
favorite foods, don't eat something that you don't like because why would you?
Exactly.
And yeah. And
Yeah.
so it was that approach.
Hmm.
And then once like and then getting into the gym, I was doing it from home, which allowed was like for my safe space. And so there was
Totally.
never any pressure to go to the gym or to do specific exercises that I was never comfortable with. It was always like working within my own scope, which I
Hmm.
greatly appreciated.
I think the fun part about that is like, so one thing I think is like, I always we try to meet people where they're at when they come into the method. So it's like, if you don't feel comfortable in the gym right now, if the gym is not a comfortable place for you where you get like excited to go, then why would we send you there? Because you're not going to go. You're not going to have a high level of mental arousal. You're going to hate your program. And it's the same with like burpees. Like, I mean, lots of people hate burpees. I mean, everyone's doing Bulgarian split squats. I don't care how much you hate them. But burpees, it's like that's not an exercise people need to do, right? And it's like there's a million other ways you can tackle what a burpee does, and like not by not ever doing a burpee, right? So I think that holistic approach is so important to me because I love meeting women where they're at building up their confidence like bit by bit, and then
Mhm.
allowing you to basically be the guide to, okay, I'm ready to go to the gym. And we kind of got to a place where I was kind of like, I don't want to push you into the gym, but I'm like, girl, you're ready for more weight. Like, you either need to invest in like a whole gym setup at home or like get your ass to the gym, kind of a thing, right? And I knew you were like ready for it because you had already had a huge physical transformation at that point. You were getting more confident, like all the things, right? Yeah. And I love what you said as well. It's funny, I actually posted about this on my story today, but the psychology of restriction, right? And this doesn't this happens in a lot of different places, right? It's like if you're in a relationship and you're like, you go do you, people are like, oh, but I'd rather actually be at home. And it's like, okay, great. Like that's a choice you're making, but you can go out if you want to, right? And it's the same with food. It's like when we restrict everything, when we're cutting out food groups and like telling people certain foods are good and others are bad and you're good or bad if you eat these things and you're cheating on your diet, and like you said, it just opens the floodgates, and then one cheat meal turns into a whole night of cheating, turns into a whole weekend of cheating, and then it's like diet starts Monday, and then we end up in this cycle of like faux diet. I call it like a faux diet. So you always feel like you're on a diet. You feel like you're always obsessing about food. You're restricting, you're white knuckling, but you're never getting to your weight loss goals. And then you just say, fuck it. Cause you're like, I'm working so hard. I'm always dieting. Nothing's happening. I'm just meant to be this weight. I'm just always going to be this big. You start coming up with all these like excuses as to why it's not going to work for you. When really all you needed to be told was like, you can eat whatever you want, but you just got to fit it into this budget. The end. Right. Yeah. And I feel like for you too, you've really embraced mindful eating. Like I think it was your last check-in or the check-in before there's the night market and you're like, I'm going with my friends. And like I looked at what was there and I just like I actually didn't want any of it. Like I knew I could have it. I knew I could work it in, but I just like chose not to. I just didn't want to. I'd rather eat my food at home. And I think that's really powerful too.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself, I think, which
Mhm.
is which is really nice.
Yeah.
And I do look at food different. And
Mhm.
in the very beginning, I knew I couldn't eat the same thing. So I would make something, and every other day I would change it out.
Mhm.
And it was so much meal prep, but I needed to do it in the beginning
Yes.
to get used to it. And
Yes.
then, but now I look at food as fuel. I do
Mhm.
enjoy, like, I like going out for
Oh,
dinner and
yeah.
for brunch, and I will enjoy the food. I look at my plate still to like fit it all in.
Mhm.
But during the week when I'm like in the zone and in the mindset, food is fuel to me now,
Totally.
whereas I never looked at it that way. And
No.
I always was amazed by people being like, how can you look at food as just fuel to like
Yeah.
fit your body?
Exactly.
And
Food is like to make us feel good. Food is to like to be
yeah,
enjoyed. It's like there's so much emotional attachment to food and putting like actually so much pressure on food to like fill this like void in us rather than just like dealing with your emotions. Right? And that's hard. Like that's like the hard work. And that's like one of the things I'm just so proud of you. I always like look at change as like a triangle, right? We have like at the top we have the comfort cave where it's like I know this cave. I don't like this cave. Like this cave has problems with it. It's like maybe there's a leak in the roof. Maybe I'm like cold at night, maybe like whatever, but at least I know it. At least it's like safe space for me, right? And then there's like moving towards pain, moving away from pain, excuse me, or moving towards pleasure. So it's like now this cave, there's rocks falling on my head every day. It's like I'm sitting on sticks, like I don't know, whatever. And so I'm going to move away from that. I'm going to move to a new cave so that I can like rebuild something better. And then there's the moving to pleasure, right? It's like I just want to feel good. I just want to feel good in my cave. I just like don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do what it needs to do because it's more pleasurable to live that way, right? And a lot of people kind of get stuck in their cave, and I feel like for you, you've really like come out of the cave. You were moving away from the pain of all of the things that you were experiencing and feeling, whether that was negative health effects, like confidence, whatever. And then you wanted to move towards the pleasure. And I love hearing just like food is fuel. And that, some people are like, well, that's sad. Like, that's sad that you view food that way. I'm like, well, I think it's sad that you view food as like something to fill up your cup,
yeah.
right? And that you can't deal with your emotions. And it is tough. It's hard work to deal with your feelings and, sit in the feels instead of just like inhaling a bag of chips or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable. There's
Totally.
moments, I mean, I still have moments where I go to the fridge and I will look in the fridge
Yes.
and I will open it and I will
Totally.
flush it back down. And
Yeah.
5 minutes later, I go back and I look in
Yes.
the fridge
Like,
for
what am
the
I
food.
looking for?
Right?
I had this talk actually, Jen. I had Jen on Reset Talk the other day, and she was saying that she was like, I'll go to the pantry and be like, nope, your problem solving isn't in this pantry. Like, walk
Yeah.
away, But it's interesting how habitual that becomes, and when you're not working on these things, you don't even actually notice that, right? You don't even notice those little like when you're walking in the fridge and you're looking around for something to like entice you, you're not hungry. It's emotion, like it.
Yeah, it's so
Love it.
true.
Yeah. So obviously mindset plays a very significant role in success. Like this is not just in weight loss success or whatever. Like this is just in success in life in general. Mindset is huge. Can you talk about some of the mindset shifts that you've experienced and how those shifts have contributed to your progress?
Yeah, I mean, emotional eating
Mhm.
has been a big one. That's kind of how I turn to, self-soothing.
Mhm.
And so in that mind shift, I mean, it's still an ongoing thing, and I think I will have that
Forever.
for life, which is
Yes.
fine. Um, but yeah, like the my confidence in my mind shift, my mind shift around food and what it does for my body, and then also also food in how it can just taste good
Yeah.
plain. And
Totally.
I put spices on things, like I don't eat things like just like boiled rice or
Totally. Boiled rice, boiled chicken, food is fuel. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like that. Like I eat well still, like I have shrimp, I eat scallops, like
Yeah.
I have beef and pork
Delicious
and
thing.
chicken. Like I
Right.
have an array of things. Like I'm not, I'm never starving myself.
Mhm.
There's a huge mind shift in,
Mhm.
losing weight. But then I think a big thing was when I was doing my reverse diet and I
Yes.
was still working out
Yep.
and I was eating 2,400 calories and I
Yeah.
was still losing weight.
I
And
know.
that still blows my mind in
Yeah.
how this whole thing can work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that you like lean into that process so much. So a lot of people don't know that maybe listening what a reverse diet is. So, there's different phases of nutrition that my clients go through that all clients really should be put through. And there's like a caloric deficit. So everyone should do those like about once a year just to kind of reset hormones, like reinstill that like mindfulness around food, and just kind of see like what we're working with in terms of body composition and stuff. And then we do a reverse diet. So a reverse diet is a slow, controlled, incremental increase to calories so that we can build up the metabolism again because metabolism adapt to when we are in a deficit. And so what that allows is for more food, more fuel, more I think one thing that you commented on, and I always know this too, like makes eating out easier. It makes you can have sauces without really having to be like, do I want the mayo or the barbecue sauce? Because I can't fit them both in today, kind of a thing. It's like I can fit them both in because I'm in more calories or whatever. When you go through a reverse diet, what often happens with a lot of people is they actually keep losing weight by eating more food. And that can just be such a mind blowing thing because, like you said, we're always taught with diet culture eat less, restrict everything. That's the way to lose weight, whatever. But psychologically, it messes us up, sets us up for failure, but also physiologically, it also messes us up and sets us up for failure because we feel like we're, like I said, always in this faux diet where I'm always dieting, nothing's working, I'm exhausted, this is overwhelming, I'm always obsessing about food, I can't quite get this right. Whereas if you just lean into the deficit, lean into the reverse diet, like that's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. Okay, awesome.
That was huge for me.
Huge. It's so huge. And it's so cool to be able to teach women that about their bodies because it goes against literally everything that we were taught in the 80s and 90s from God bless them, our mothers. Bless up. Okay, so when we look at non-scale victories, so non-scale victories are things like, feeling more energetic, having more confidence, clothes fitting better, getting stronger in the gym, sleeping better, like all of the things that we've been chatting about already, like mindset shifts, all of that kind of stuff. Those are often overlooked, especially when women's focus is on like weight loss and like what we're seeing on the scale. Those get overlooked and the scale takes complete control over our feelings of success, excuse me. But non-scale victories are incredibly important. So what are some of the non-scale victories that have been meaningful to you that you've achieved over the last year?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I have brand new wardrobe, which is fantastic.
Totally.
And it's still like ever growing and changing because I'm still changing.
Totally.
I think in the beginning it was about the clothes where I needed to focus on.
Mhm.
While I could see some like numbers drop like in the scale, I couldn't I had to use my clothes
Yeah.
as the marker
Yeah.
because I couldn't see anything
You couldn't see the
physiologically
change. Yes.
any change. And so that to me it was more about the clothing. And then once I got myself down to kind of a spot where I always got to, like that in itself, I had to have like a mindset shift
Yes.
because I was struggling because I just like I always got to this point, but then it was
Yes.
like this like scaredness of like
Totally.
overcoming to that point, being
Yeah.
like, who am I gonna be?
Yeah.
And so I remember you saying, but like, what does it matter? Like, who you're gonna be? Like, you're not like, gonna really change. Like, you're just gonna look a little
Still
different.
you. You're just gonna look different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was those kinds of things
Mm.
as well for the mindset shift. And then now with like losing the weight and then seeing still with the scale, but now with the scale, like I know we've had that chat where it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, you might be at this weight or whatever. And so now I can see more definition in my muscles and I can see
Yes.
my body composition changing still
I was
and
even
all.
showing my husband. I don't normally show my husband many of my client like photos, but I was showing him. I was like, "Look at my client's arms! Like you were like jacked. Like he was like full bicep, like shoulders popping, like whatever." He's like, "Wow, good for her." Like it's just so cool to see, and those have nothing to do with the scale, right?
No, nothing. And I see it every week, like in
Yeah.
the gym. And even like people in the gym this week,
Yeah.
like this week has been this like week of people like either I was like hit on a couple times, which is so
Yes.
different for me. And it's like
Yeah.
weird because like, and I've said this before, it's just like you feel invisible
Yeah.
when you are bigger and not confident and not
Totally.
happy with yourself, right? And
Totally.
so that whole shift in like the non-scale victory is huge. And
Yeah.
then it's also then just being like, "Oh, yeah, okay. Like I do deserve to be like hit on this way or like
Absolutely.
yeah, like someone can compliment me. Like I don't need
Yeah.
to take it in like a derogatory term.
Exactly. Oh, they're just trying, they feel sorry for me and they're just trying to make me feel good or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love all of that. And that is also important. And it's like, I think everyone, when they have a desire to lose weight, it's not about the weight, right? It's about becoming a not a different person, but it's like I always say it's not about the weight you lose, it's about like what you gain in the process. And we've just talked about this too, but there is an identity shift that does happen and needs to happen when you get down to a certain weight because you have lost 70 pounds. Like you are still the same person to your core. Like your values are still the same. Your morals are still the same. What you care about is still the same, but you are different. You are, like you said, you're getting this attention now. Some people don't know what to do with that attention and are like, I liked it better when nobody looked at me, so I'm just going to put this weight back on or whatever, right? There's psychological things that can happen. And also, too, I think one of the important things is like sometimes people think that weight loss is going to magically just get them a new job and get them a new man and fix their life and they're going to be making all this money and whatever, but there is an actual identity shift and a different type of confidence and like whatever that gets projected that does start to slowly bring those things because you believe you deserve them, not because you're smaller necessarily, right? But it's like if you're walking around with your head up higher and you're smiling and you're confident and like you're feeling good and whatever, of course people are going to hit on you, but they would have hit on you 70 pounds ago if you were doing all those same things, right? So there's so much psychology behind weight loss and body change and all of those things. And I think that's like such an important thing for people to understand, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing that you already kind of talked about, but you were initially intimidated by going to the gym to work out. I know you were like doing the boot camp classes and stuff because you were in like a group atmosphere that was like led, but then once it was like we're moving away from those, you were like, I'm just gonna work out at home. But now you embrace your gym workouts so confidently. And so I'm just curious, how has strength training, getting stronger, seeing that more muscle, growing and whatever, how has that empowered you both physically and mentally? And how did you finally get that like moment where you're like, okay, I have to get away from these home workouts. I just got to suck it up and go to the gym.
Yeah, I think it was different things I had seen online as well about if you're not struggling like on those last like two sets or anything like that, and it's not challenging, then you need to look
Confident
into it
change.
and you're not going to see progress or change. And I was like,
Totally.
I have to go to the gym. And I wasn't willing to, because I'm in a rental, like I wasn't willing to invest in a home gym until I knew
Totally.
where I was going to be in my forever home. And
Yes.
so I was like, I gotta go to the gym. I did put it off probably for like a month longer. I should have signed up in January.
Yeah.
But then I used the excuse of like, oh, the New Year's resolution
Too
people.
busy.
Yeah. And so I think in that for like the mindset shift,
You
it was like I still saw myself as bigger. I didn't want to be that like new girl in the gym.
say you go in the gym. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's just like, oh, look at her starting. But I mean, and then I think you did a post, you're like, everyone starts somewhere. And it was like, you know what?
Literally.
Everyone does start somewhere.
Yes.
And I just have to go and do it. And if
Yes.
I like, there's so many people there working on a journey, and it doesn't matter. Everyone's in their own like tunnel vision, which is very
Nobody
true
cares.
because
Yes. Nobody cares.
I put my headphones in. I might look at people to be like, dang, he is lifting that much.
Yeah.
Did I lift heavier than him? But like, I don't judge anyone in the gym. I mean, unless
No, and most people don't,
yeah,
right? Like most people that go, I think, gym intimidation is like a real thing for women because I think there's a couple of things. It's like So I think we've talked about this, and I can't remember if it's called the Bob Marley. No, it's not Bob. It's like it's a psychological experiment that they did where it's like people always think that everyone's looking at them. Everybody thinks that everyone is like looking at them, cares about what they're doing, whatever. And at the end of the day, like most people are so self-absorbed, they're also thinking that everyone's looking at them. And so they did this like experiment. Maybe it was Bob Hope. They put like Bob Hope on a t-shirt and they made people walk around and they're like, how many people do you think looked at you? And they're like, oh, like they, whatever. It was like 95% of people. They thought 95% of people looked at them. So they had this shirt on and it turned out to be like 11%. And it was
Mm.
just like, it was so like, so minimal, but it's like in our mind, we create these like anxious feelings, right? We're like, everybody's looking, everybody cares, everybody's going to be judging me, everyone's going to think this about me. And it's like, no, you're thinking those things about yourself, but you need to figure out where that's coming from because actually everyone else is just worried about themselves, you
Yeah.
know? Totally.
Very
And then, yeah, I am very proud of you for just like finally ripping off that band-aid and just being like, yeah, because the thing is, if you always find reasons that, oh, it's January, well, now it's this, well, now it's that. It's like you're always gonna find reasons, but like your body has actually totally really transformed since you went to the gym and started lifting heavier, right? Yeah. But you also had to get there. You had to get there psychologically. And I think that's the other important thing to acknowledge is like, you're never going to get there if you don't at least start. But then at some point, you just got to like be like, okay, I am holding my own self back now from, you kept saying, like, I want to be more toned. I want this. And I'm like, cool, you got to lift some weights. Like, you got to lift heavier, So I was like so proud of you. And now you're just like, look at this. Look at this. Like, it's just so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. What advice would you give to someone who's just kind of starting out on their journey or like in a similar place to where you were, where you've like lost weight, gained it, avoid going to the gym because you're worried about what people are thinking. And I guess especially regarding like the importance of mindset and consistency and like being committed, because I think that you just embody those three things. So what advice would you give to another woman who's like gonna watch this, who's like, yeah, well, that's nice for Dionne, but like that just can't be me. Like, what advice would you give to that woman?
I would say the biggest thing is to believe in yourself and to believe that you are worth it because you are. And once you believing in yourself and believing that you're worth it will open up doors like you wouldn't even believe. And I would say that that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And you prove it to yourself once you start in this journey and showing up every day for you.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing.
How did you get there though? Right? Because it's like it's easy to say, like, so for example, I've worked with coaches or I've had clients come to me that I've worked with coaches who didn't understand emotional eating and they're like, well, just stop doing it. And it's like, cool, bro, but like if it was that easy, I would. Do you think I enjoy eating until I'm literally physically sick, wrapped around the toilet because I'm in so much physical pain because I literally ate everything in my pantry that I told myself do you think I enjoy that? No, I don't. Right? So it's like if it was as simple as just stopping, like you would. So when we say like, I mean, I agree with you. You have to just commit to believing and then sticking through with that and just putting the reps in and putting one foot in front of the other and just believing that if you just keep going through the motions, it's going to work out for you. And it has. But how does someone get to like, what did you do? Because there's obviously you didn't believe in the past. So like, what was the shift? Like, what was the aha moment where you're like, I can keep going this way, or I can commit and believe that I deserve this and just lean into that? What was the like epiphany for you?
Yeah, I think it was because I was 36 and I was like,
Mm,
I'm gonna be 37. I'm like, I've worked on my mental health.
yeah.
My mental health is in such a great spot. I've got like a great job, I've got a great life, but like I'm just so unhappy. Like I need to get my shit together
Yeah.
and get my relationship with food. That's like was like the last missing
The
puzzle
last
piece
thing.
for me.
Yeah.
And it was like, I need to do this. I want to do this because I want a fulfilling and happy life. I'm going to be 37.
Mm.
And not that it was because I was going to be 37 as like a number. It was just
Yeah.
like my birthday's coming up and it was just like I want these other things in my life. I want to be happy. I want a relationship. I
Yeah.
want to better my relationships with my
Mhm.
friends and my family and just take pictures of myself and
Mhm.
be happy. And I
Yeah.
was missing those points.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You were just like, I'm living life this way, and although things are good, I'm still missing all of these other things.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Do you you touched on something that I think is very important is the mental health component because um trainers can give you a meal plan and trainers can give you a set of macros and trainers can write up a workout program and they can hold you accountable and send you the messages and check in with you and do all the things. But if our mental health isn't in a good spot, like we're just never going to get there, right? It's like I have the majority of my clients get really, really great results in the reset method. And then I always, of course, are going to have a few that just fall off, don't do what they're supposed to do, make up excuses, blame the program, blame me, like whatever. And that's fine because I know that that's where they're at in their journey. But, I think that mental health component is so critical. So if you don't mind sharing, and you can totally just tell me to go F myself if it's too much, but like, what did you find you needed to like work on within your mental health before you felt like confident enough to be like, I believe that I deserve this and I'm committing to it?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with depression. I've had like a couple bouts of depression
Yeah.
in my early 20s after my friend had died. And I
Mhm.
think I always had it, but it kind of like was more prevalent when
Right.
like I had after he passed.
Yeah.
And then I was on medication and then was still seeing like a therapist. And then I had another bout in my early 30s and then, went through kind of like another round, but I always like and then I changed therapists and that
Yeah.
is that's also key because you can
Yes.
not change the therapist.
Yes. Finding the
Um,
right therapist is like it's so
yes.
hard. But when
Yes.
you find the right one, you're like, praise like Jesus, like thank God I found this person because
Yeah.
it has to be it's same with coaches, right? Like some people it's like you click with and then some people just like not quite and whatever. But yeah, finding a right therapist is like huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I struggled with change like in my 20s. So it was shifting. It was also about like a mindset shift within my
Mm.
own mental health to
Yeah.
be like, okay, you don't deal with change. Like, how can we progress this? And
Yes.
then
Like,
then
why don't you
like,
deal with change? How do we move forward through change?
yeah,
Yeah. Love it.
working on my like inner relationship with myself and being
Yes.
kinder to myself and just different relationships, but then family and friends
Yeah.
and just seeing it can be just about like what the therapist says as like, oh, what if you tried this? And it's like,
Totally.
okay, you know what, let's
What
try
if I
this.
did
I'll
try
come
that?
back next month and
Yeah.
I'll tell you how that was.
Totally.
It was like this evolving and process. And I
Yeah.
mean, even during like when I was plateauing, like I went back and I saw my therapist to be like, what
Amazing.
am I afraid of? Like,
Yes. Yes.
you know, why is this like coming into play
Right.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's very important to have like your mental health in check
Totally.
at all stages.
Yes. And I agree too with the like, I'm very big on like scopes of practice. So I can like bring, if I'm observing like behaviors that I know are like, self limiting beliefs, self sabotage, like whatever, I can like bring those up. I can like ask, like, hey, have you ever considered going and talking to someone about this? Because what I notice is XYZ when clients have it. It's like, would you be open to exploring that with someone? I think it's going to really help you. It's going to help you get unstuck because I can help people with like baseline, behavior modification, mindset, like flipping the script. Like, hey, instead of like talking to ourselves this way, like what would happen if we put it this way? Like I can do that kind of stuff for sure as a coach. But in terms of like the serious work, like that has to come from a mental health therapist, right? Who's like, taught these things and like has insurance and like all of the things to cover things, right? So I do find my clients that do struggle with emotional eating and self-sabotage and self-limiting beliefs and have, trauma, excuse me, that gets reactivated or triggered in some way. I think it is so critical to go talk to someone. And I love that there's less of a stigma. Like more people are before when I had my therapist, I didn't tell anyone. I was like, I don't want him to know I go to therapy and something's wrong with me. And now I'm like, yeah, I go to therapy. Like I love it. I look forward to it, you know? Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So, what advice, or sorry, you are working towards a very significant goal right now, significant strength goal, which is hitting a 300-pound hip thrust. So, again, just as like someone who was like scared to go into the gym, and like, what was the biggest weight that you had at home?
I had a 55-pound kettlebell,
Kettlebell.
and
Okay.
then 50, and then I had a set of 5 to 50 pound dumbbells.
Okay. So like to put that into perspective, I mean that's you're now going for a PR that's 6 times the amount of weight that you had access to at home, right? And so just to put that into perspective, excuse me, for people, I think it's important because there's like this idea, and I don't know if you ever fell for this mindset of like toning reps where it's like, oh, to
Yes.
get toned, I need to do toning reps with lighter weights, right? Yeah. And now it's like you're going to hit this 300-pound hip thrust. And like that's what's changing. Like your butt has changed. Like your butt shape is changing. Like everything's, changing. But can you share how setting and working towards focused goals and not just weight loss has impacted your motivation and determination?
Yeah. So I only started going to the gym in February. So it's 3.5 months. And so I was doing a hip thrust of like maybe 250-pound double belt. And so, yeah. I think going and like lifting heavier weights is more gratifying to see and to say, oh, yeah, like I did a barbell like bicep curl for 50
Yeah,
pounds. And
totally.
that's the gratifying, that's the motivation
Yes.
behind it. And the serotonin that you get, or like
Mm.
the dopamine that you
Yeah, the
get from
dopamine. Yeah,
like lifting the heavier weight,
totally.
it's amazing.
It's
People
a
talk
good.
about like a runner's high, like this is
Totally.
like a weightlifting high.
Totally. Yeah, because I find with running, it's like you get that runner's high, it's like the endorphin dump and whatever. But with weightlifting, it's like when you lift something, I don't know, like I find like as a woman, it's like when you lift a heavy weight, and you already kind of touched on this, you look around and you're like, I'm lifting more weight than you, sir. Like it just feels good, right? It's like I know for me, like from my own perspective, like I'm always like the small person, right? Like everyone's like, you're so small, you're so compact, you're so like whatever. So I love like walking into the gym and just deadlifting 225 pounds and hip thrusting 500 pounds. And people are like, because you're just so like, I'm only 5'1", right? But I
Yeah.
think as a woman in general, it's like, it just feels so empowering. And such a confidence boost to be like, I lifted that. Like I did that. That is amazing, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I befriended this like young girl at the gym because she emailed me after like the hip because she wanted the hip thrust machine.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm still stuck at 45 pounds. Like, how do you lift this much? And it's like, girl, you gotta like add 5 pounds
Yeah.
every
5 pounds is
time to
great.
like get yourself going. Because
Totally.
once you do it,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so that is my challenge every time, to
Love
at
it.
least go up 5 or 10 pounds
Perfect.
and at least do one set heavier, if
Exactly.
not two.
Yeah,
And then if I have to go down,
totally.
I kind of go back down to my previous, and then maybe hopefully do like an extra rep or whatever.
Totally. Totally. And I love that so much. Like, it doesn't have to be, it can even be 2.5 pounds aside. Like, it doesn't have to be like, I think that's the thing that people don't realize with progressive overload, getting stronger. It's like, it doesn't have to go from 45 pounds to, 85 pounds. It can be like from 45 to 55, and then 55 to 57.5, and then 57, whatever. And like you said as well, it's like challenge yourself. And even if, whatever, you're supposed to do 10 reps at a 3010 tempo, and you can literally get out 3 of those. You either turn that into a rest pause set, so you rest for like 20 seconds, regroup yourself, get as many more as you can, or you turn it into a drop set,
Yep.
or like you said, you just take it off and you go like less and you do an extra set. But at least you're challenging that strength, right? And that's important to do when you are looking to get stronger. Okay, so One thing that you have done amazingly well is adhere not only to your nutrition protocols, and I want to be very clear on this, like you have not been 100% perfect. I think that's
Yeah.
always important to like acknowledge because but you've been damn near close. Like you have not allowed, like a bad meal turn into two bad meals or like a bad day turn into like a week of falling off or whatever. It's like you've struggled through it and you've like course corrected and continued. But you've had more like good days than I would say bad days. And I think that's also important to highlight. But you've also been incredibly consistent for your workouts. Like you are one of the clients where like every 4 weeks I am updating your program because you do adhere to it. There's like no excuse kind of attitude. So how do you stay so committed to your plan, especially on challenging days or challenging weeks where like period stress like tired like not feeling it? How have you avoided letting your mood dictate your actions?
I think it's just been in the whole reset in like your whole reset program. I
Mhm.
think it's really been about from like the beginning of day one and a part of like my mindset shift because yeah, I haven't been 100% perfect. I've had my moments
Yeah,
where I've, binge ate or whatever and had to like message you and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff to be like, what the heck? Um, but I think it's, I think you did a post or maybe it was something in like your material and it was just like, you know what? You ate, you binge ate or you emotionally ate, but you
mhm,
know what? Like it stops there. You just start again. Like
yeah,
it's not about this like, oh, I'll just start fresh again tomorrow. It's like, no,
yeah.
you start
You should
fresh
start now.
from this moment
Really
on
hit me with it. Yeah.
and you move on. Yeah. And so I think it was that.
Mm,
And so, but then also within like the method of like just my calories and my protein and not having anything for restriction, it
yes.
just really allowed, and then like the meal planning, and it just really
Yes.
allowed for me to pick the foods that I really enjoy,
100%.
have sauces and like work it in,
Mm.
still have chocolate or still have ice cream, still be able to like go out and have a couple beverages
Totally.
and not feel like I'm missing out on life
Mhm.
because of like some diet thing that was,
Totally.
that I've been trying to work on or like, oh, I'm like, oh, well, now I have a cheat meal. Like I can't go out and do this because of whatever.
Yes.
So that was really, I
Oh,
think, a part of like my commitment
I love it.
was that I still was able to like do everything and I never felt unsatisfied. And then I think recently, like, I mean, I have a goal in mind for the photo shoot in
Mhm.
July, which is huge. And so that
Totally.
I think was like a very big driver to like my commitment.
Yes.
And but I also really enjoy it. Like it is a part of my routine. This is a part of my life. And I want to I want to set myself up for success and to maintain it. And I really like going to the gym now. Like I
Yes.
really like working out. Yeah, like it's just a part of me
Yes.
and so there really isn't an excuse and like I will you know, I'm also like a habitual person and I'm a Virgo. I like perfection. So I think that maybe plays into a few things.
Totally.
Um, but yeah, like I think it's just all encompassing for that. And yeah, I'm just like so far into it that I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like if today I am really tired, then okay, I can move my workout to a different day. But you know what? Like once I'm at the gym, I'm gonna
Yes.
feel really freaking good.
Yeah.
So let's just go.
Totally. Totally. I love all of that. And I think it's so important that reframing of things. It's like when we allow ourselves to talk ourselves out of things, that's when we start to have problems. And I think it's important to also have that flexibility, right? Like your training program is set up around 4 days a week, which allows you 3 buffer days. And I think that's so important. And when I'm designing people's workout programs and we're looking at their workout approach, it's like you don't have to go to the gym 7 days a week. Like so many people just have that in their mind. Like, I gotta go to the gym every day. And then if you miss a day, then that's when we start to have problems because then people are like, well, I already missed one day. I may as well miss the other 3 days and get back started on my, it's again creates that like fuck it mindset, that all or nothing approach that we don't want. But it's also fair to be like, today my uterus is bloated. I had a shit that, whatever. Some days you just don't feel like going. And sometimes it's not worth it to go when we're really, really, really down and really tired and really stressed. Because although you may feel better after workout, you may actually feel worse because then your strength is going to be down and your mood is going to be down and your vibe is going to be off. And then, so just depending, I think again that plays into the mindful and empowerment that I find a lot of women feel in the reset method, which is like, I know I can go tomorrow. And so today I'm going to honor where I'm at and I'm just going to stay home, have a bath and like put myself to bed and like pick up tomorrow. And then also to just playing into like what I always say to you guys, like follow your plan, not your mood. Because if we follow our mood, we're never going to get anything done, right? For the most part, it's like you just got to follow the plan.
It is very true. And that comes into play with like meal prep.
Yeah.
And I would always just like prep my food for the lunches and then like breakfast.
Yeah.
But then I'd be so exhausted by the end of the day. By the time I came home, some days I just would have like a bowl of popcorn or whatever. And so, with knowing like follow your plan, not your mood, that really played into, because then I started really meal prepping for my dinners as well, because then I didn't have to think about it. It was just like, yeah, this is in my fitness file. This is what I'm having. I'm eating it no matter what.
Yes. I think that's so a critical thing as well. And not to be like sound like a weirdo, but when you are a single person only cooking dinner for yourself, it's not as enjoyable, right? It's not as enjoyable to like make this big meal and like, because it's always more fun to feed other people and like watch them enjoy your food and then you can enjoy it with them. I used to find that when I was single a lot. So why I'm bringing it up, it's like I just ate out of Tupperware containers all the time because I was like, I don't care if this tastes good, doesn't taste good, whatever. It's in my fridge. I'm just going to eat it. I had to do the same thing because otherwise I would get home from work. I'd be totally wiped and I would either order a pizza or eat nothing. That's what I did. I was just like straight up. And so I just found that if I didn't have like my Tupperware containers in the fridge pre-made, preset in my fitness pal, I was going to be set up for failure. And I think that's an important thing to touch on for people, or even like I've trained moms who are, separated from their husbands and they only have their kids half the time. So when they're not with their kids, they also have to do that because in that moment they are single cooking for themselves and whatever. Right. So it's, I think that's such an important thing to touch on is like just being prepared. I love that. Okay, what role has the support and guidance from having a coach and also the Reset Method community played in your journey? Because, I think a lot of people talk themselves out of hiring a coach because they're like, I don't need a coach. I don't need that right now. My thing isn't so big. I just need a meal plan. I just need a workout program. I don't need ongoing accountability support. Like I know what I'm doing, whatever. So what role do you find has the support and guidance from me and the also like just having the community around you played in your journey? Yeah. 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 Totally. And I really like love that about all of you. It's like there's no one that is like judgmental or, whatever. Like everyone is just so supportive, so willing to help, so willing to step in, offer advice or guidance or whatever. And I just think it's just so beautiful to see because that's not many women's experience with other women. And so I think like just being able to like provide that like as well, I think is just so like important. And it's been an important part of the reset method for me. And I love hearing that. All right. So looking ahead, what would you say your aspirations and goals are, for the future? So both maybe in terms of your fitness and or like personal growth. Yes. It's such a journey, right? And I think it's important to have that long-term vision, which is like long-term sustainability, the balance that you mentioned. And just like you said, like you're turning 37. And I think one thing, and you didn't say this, but I find this with a lot of people, it's like, okay, I've lived the last 37 years basically obsessing over food, feeling like shit, like struggling with finding food freedom and this balance and like whatever. Like I don't want to live the rest of my life like that. So I think it's really important to have that long-term vision. Like mine is like, I had a baby at almost 40. If my kid waits till almost 40 to have a baby, like I'm going to be 80. And so in my mind, I'm like, I got to keep it together because I want to babysit the kids and play with them and still be running around the park with them and whatever. And if I'm 80, I got to make sure that I'm able to do those things as well as I want to travel and I want to be able to like climb every mountain and like see it. Well, probably not climb every mountain because I hate hiking, but like climb the things and like do things and like lift my like carry on into the baggage compartment over top. And like those things are important to me. That's my long term vision. But and then, as you said, it's also important to have like little mini goals that we're working towards that are like keeping us excited, keeping us motivated, that are a bit of a stretch for us, but like super exciting to be working towards. And I think all of that is like super important. Yeah. And I love how like it was funny, well not funny, but ironic how one thing that you said was like I never wanted to get my picture taken and now in July you're going to be like getting your picture taken to be on a magazine cover and I think that's like just it's just interesting how things have shifted so much in 1 year for you where it's like you didn't want to get your picture taken a year ago and now you're like please take my picture and put me on 25,000 newsstands across America while you're at it. I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dionne, for sharing not only your incredible insights and experiences, but also just bringing some motivation to us today. Your journey is truly inspiring. I've been inspired by you. And I have no doubt that our listeners are going to be empowered and motivated by your story. So just remember, listeners, success is not just about reaching a number on the scale, it's about embracing the journey, celebrating the progress, celebrating the woman that you become and all the things you gain during your journey, and ultimately just believing in yourself. So if you are a woman watching this, listening to this, and you are interested in your own reset, I can be reached directly through Instagram at the_reset_method or on my website at www.ihelpwomengetfit.com. And please tune in next time for more reset talks where we continue to explore stories of transformation and empowerment. Until then, stay inspired.